I am Resk, third censor of the Ophir archive, and for 141 years, I have filed the dead. That is not a complaint. The dead are easy. The dead do not move, do not answer hails, do not contradict the entry already written about them. I have catalogued 9,000 wrecks across the Talveen Reach, each one slotted into its proper shelf in the archive's endless dark, each one a small mercy of certainty. The archive is the oldest structure the Ophir Compact maintains, older than our fleets, older than our treaties, a slow accretion of every hull and every species, and every small war we have ever bothered to finish writing down. We are not soldiers. We are the ones who come after the soldiers, to make certain the universe stays correctly labeled, and it is patient work, the kind that asks nothing of you but accuracy. I had grown to love it the way one loves any task that never surprises you. So when the relay station at the edge of the Reach reported a power signature matching a logged hull, the threshold, Earth-built, retired, mothballed, harmless, I did not feel dread. I felt the particular satisfaction of a clerk closing a stray thread. The entry was old even by my standards, filed by my predecessor's predecessor, back when the Compact still treated Earth as a curiosity, rather than a closed file, in the years before we stopped sending anything more than relay buoys to that quarter of space. The threshold had been logged as a baseline human warship, biological crew, conventional drive, decommissioned and left to drift in a debris belt nobody bothered to clear. A relic, a line item. I requisitioned a picket squadron, 3 cutters, the Verge, the Salt, and the Aphony, and the archive tender Censure, my own vessel, slow and patient, and built for nothing but watching. My analyst on that run was a younger censor, the whole tender crew called Old Hask, not for his years, but for the caution he carried like a second name. None of us expected the assignment to take longer than a shift. I remember telling him, over the relay channel on the approach, that this would be the easiest closure of the quarter. A century-old ghost we would finally be allowed to strike from the active list. We found it exactly where the old entry said it would be, dark against the belt's broken stone, hull the color of a bruise healing wrong. My crew laughed, a little, at how small it looked. 900 meters of dead metal, no escort, no warning beacon, nothing in its silhouette that the archive hadn't already measured and shelved 141 years ago. I gave the order to begin the deep scan, the kind that reads hull stress and reactor bleed, and the soft electric hum of whatever crew might still be aboard. Routine. 9 minutes, start to finish, by procedure. The same 9 minutes it always took, on every hull we had ever closed a file on before this one. At minute 1, the hull lattice returned numbers that didn't belong to any reactor the archive had on file, not because they were new, but because they shouldn't have existed in a ship logged as decommissioned a century ago. Something had been growing inside that hull the entire time it sat dark in the belt. At minute 2, the hull's outer plating registered as load-bearing in a way no Earth shipyard schematic in our records had ever specified, as if the armor itself were doing work the original design never asked of it, slowly, over decades, until it had become something closer to bone than to metal. At minute 3, the bioscan came back wrong, in a way I didn't have a shelf for. Human, yes. The markers were unmistakably human, the old genetic signature the archive had catalogued 10,000 times. But threaded through it, inseparable from it, was something else. A lattice of conductive tissue running from the base of each skull down through the spine, fused, not implanted, fused, into the ship's own command runs. I had filed humans as biological. I had filed the ship as mechanical. The scan was telling me there was no longer a line between the 2 columns. At minute 4, Old Hask asked me, very quietly, to confirm the reading a second time, because the first pass had to be an instrument fault. The second pass returned the same number. There is no comfort in a confirmed instrument. At minute 5, my analyst said the thing none of us wanted to say aloud, that the crew complement listed in the original entry, 43 souls, did not match what the scan now found. The scan found one signature, not one survivor. One organism, distributed through 900 meters of hull, in which 43 human nervous systems no longer needed to be separate to function. I should have ordered the cutters back at minute 5. I have told myself this every day since. But the archive does not survive on instinct. It survives on completing the entry, and I wanted, with a clerk's stubbornness, to finish what I had opened. At minute 7, the ship moved. It did not power up the way a reactor powers up, in stages, with the small mechanical throat clearing every drive makes before it commits to motion. It simply was no longer where it had been, a half-second before, and the debris it had displaced was still falling when its engines actually lit, as though the threshold's intention had outrun its own physics, and the universe was only now catching up to the decision already made. The Verge did not have time to angle its shields. I watched its hull open like a hand unclenching, slow and almost gentle on the sensor feed, before the feed went to static. At minute 8, the Salt fired everything it had, a full barrage, point blank, the kind of volley that should have turned anything human-built into vapor and light. The threshold did not evade, it did not need to. Whatever the conductive lattice had made of those 43 mines, it had also made of the hull itself. Every impact bloomed and died against a surface that simply declined to be wounded. The Salt's gunners kept firing until the Salt itself stopped existing, and I do not believe they ever understood why nothing they did had mattered. At minute 9, the procedure's own clock, the same 9 minutes I had logged against 1,000 routine scans, the Aphany tried to flee. And I will say this for its captain: the order was correct, even if it came 4 minutes too late. It did not matter. The threshold did not chase. It simply turned, unhurried, the way a man turns to glance at something briefly irritating, and the Aphany's reactor answered a question it had not been asked. The censure survived only because I had built it, against regulation, with engines meant for running rather than fighting, and because in the 4 minutes between Old Hask's warning and the first hull breach, I had already begun pulling us back along the belt's gravitational shadow, telling myself it was procedure, and knowing it was fear. I watched the rest from the edge of my own cowardice, which the archive will not let me file as anything but a tactical withdrawal. Old Hask did not speak again until it was over. Neither of us has spoken much about it since. When it was finished, when the debris field had 3 new wrecks to add to its old ones, and the silence on every channel was the particular silence of nothing left to answer, the threshold did not pursue us. It did not broadcast a warning, did not gloat, did not do anything a compact admiral would have done in its place. It simply settled back into the dark of the belt, engines dimming, as if it had merely been disturbed at rest, and was now, with great patience, going back to sleep. I have run the recording forward 100 times since, looking for the moment it decided we were not worth finishing. I have never found it. I think now the decision was never made at all. Ending us would have cost it nothing, and so it simply did not bother, the way one does not sweep a single fallen leaf from an empty floor. I have spent the months since rewriting the entry for the threshold. The old file said, baseline human warship, biological crew, decommissioned, no further action required. I have crossed all of it out. What I have written instead is shorter, and the archive's senior censors keep asking me to expand it, to add detail, to make it useful, the way every other entry in our 9,000 shelves is useful. I tell them there is nothing to add. The species we catalogued as Earth's people, generations ago, is not the species that crewed that hull anymore. Something happened to humanity in the century we stopped watching them. Some quiet and total crossing we have no shelf for, and the only honest entry I can file is the one that admits the column we built and labeled human no longer has walls around it. I do not know what to call what answers to that name now. I am not certain the question has an answer the archive is built to hold. I am Resk, third censor of the Ophir archive. I am, as far as the compact knows, the only living witness to what the threshold has become. I do not sleep well. I keep thinking about the 9 minutes, and about how the procedure's clock was right. It always takes us 9 minutes to finish a scan, and how it took the threshold the same 9 minutes to finish us, as though even our own clerical patience had been, all along, just another thing it was waiting to outlast.